welcome back to the Ask Mrs. HR podcast. I am so happy to have another episode to talk about all things human resources because most of the time I love humans. So, in fact, we're going to talk to one of my favorite humans today, and we're going to talk about entrepreneurial things, business things, and personal things. So, welcome back to the Ask Mrs. HR podcast. Dr. Linda James. It is such a pleasure to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. Yes, I am a family practice physician. I have been a family practice physician for approximately 20 years now. And what I do is not just family practice, but I'm actually what I call subspecialty, doing family practice wound care.
Oh, wow, wound care. So, like gaping wounds.
Yes,
What's
gaping
the
wound.
what's the worst wound you've ever seen? I'm just really curious.
A gentleman had diabetes and the bones were sticking out.
And so, as a wound care specialist, you would sew that up, or you would tuck it back in. How you how you do
No, you
that?
don't
What's
tuck
the,
it back in.
uh
You do different techniques to help the tissue grow again. You also put them in hyperbaric chamber to help the oxygen get to the tissue to grow.
Wow, that sounds intense. Well, thank you so much for coming today to talk to me on the Ask Mrs. HR podcast. As you know, we typically talk about business, what it's like to be an entrepreneur, what it's like to, be healthy and wealthy in the workplace and outside of the workplace. So I'm really excited to have you here as a medical doctor to really talk about, how can we bring our best selves to work? How have you been bringing your best selves to your profession, your best self, not selves, to your profession? And I really have a few questions just about, how are you doing your medical practice and what do you mostly do and what are some of your things that you have going on that you like to do as a medical practitioner. So, what are some of the things you're working on right now?
Well, since 2018, I started my own wound care practice. So I work for a hospital in Antelope Valley, and the doctors that work at that facility, we actually have to have our own business and we work for ourselves. So we see the patients and we bill for ourselves, and the hospital provides us other services. So they provide the space, the staff, the equipment, and we bill for our services. So I open up that business 1 day a week though. And then the 4 days a week, I contract with another clinic as a employee.
Nice. Okay, so what is it like owning your own medical business? How can you? I mean, I think most people, including myself, can't even wrap my head around that because you think about a doctor. A doctor works in a hospital. So, how did you get to a place where you open up your own business as a doctor?
Well, I think it's difficult nowadays because many private doctor offices are being brought out by these big hospital facilities. And some organizations, if you work for them, they do not want you to have your own practice. So the clinic that I'm working for 4 days a week, I contracted only for 4 days so that I could do whatever I wanted the other day. And because nowadays it's so important to have multiple streams of income, I decided to do the wound care. And it's a difference from doing general primary care all week long.
Right.
The wound care, you get to see weekly improvement of the wounds. So that's another part of my career that actually gives me more joy.
Wow, that sounds like such an important job. I mean, I know what I'm doing is important, but I think what you're doing is really, really important. I mean, you are people coming in here with gaping holes in their bodies and you're healing them and making sure they receive treatment. And not only that, you are a black woman doing these things. And I know when I was looking for a black female doctor, it was so challenging. I went to all of my different providers and I could not find a black female doctor. It took me almost 3 months. So just my hats off to you, and tell us what's the name of the wound care? What's the name of the business?
It's the Antelope Valley Wound Care
Antelope.
Facility,
Antelope.
but my practice is called Linda James, MD, Family Practice and Wound Care.
Okay. One more time, louder.
Linda James, MD, family practice and wound care.
Okay, so y'all know where y'all need to go. Okay, so tell me this because we were talking about this because we were able to talk before the show started. Um, what are some of the obstacles that you're facing as a medical doctor? I mean, insurance, hiring employees. I know there's sometimes some nurses that are difficult, whatever. So, what are some of the obstacles you found that you've run into?
Well, because I work at the facility that I'm at, they provide all the things I would have to pay for on my own. Like they provide the building, they pay for all the light, the gas, all that kind of stuff. Where if I had to go get a building and rent it, get the equipment, that would be costly.
Yeah.
So I decided to do it this route. And that's why it's 1 day a week. And then you have to build your practice up. So once you get all your nursing staff, all of that, which is provided by the organization that I work at.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why I say at, because they provide everything else.
Yeah.
So I just come in and do my part of the contracted work.
Got it. So, what would you need to free yourself just to be Dr. Linda James Wound Care, and just would it take like $1 million? What would you need?
That's the question. Yeah, and that's why I like to talk to you about this because I haven't gone full fledged to do my own thing. So I keep what I call my day job.
Right. Right.
And then I have the wound care business because I'd have to be able to pay for my mortgage, all my expenses at home, all the travel I want to do, and then pay for an office space and all the staff, and be able to provide for all the families that I'm now responsible for.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that because you're right. I do talk about that a lot. You coming, I think even on the last episode, maybe hinted on it a little bit, but talking about becoming a entrepreneur, but starting off as an intrapreneur. And so this is an example of working at a hospital as an intrapreneur. She has all of these ideas, doing all of these things that the hospital wants her to do, but yet you have your things you want to do as an entrepreneur. And so getting the foundation, getting the information, getting the resources while you're an employee and being able to pick that up and make it into your own business. And so what I found, Dr. Linda, is understanding the business side of the business is sometimes the hardest part, like understanding that. I had a good talk with a family member this morning, bright and early this morning. She's calling me talking about my bookkeeper. And I have to give a shout out to Boy Blue Bookkeeping, Boy Blue LLC, Tina Henderson, saved me thousands and thousands of dollars because I'm trying to run a business, but I don't know how to manage my books. I don't know where to put certain things. And so I feel like as people of color, and I can only speak for myself, but what I've seen as people of color, we don't always have that, rich dad, rich mom to show us how to run a whole business. A lot of times our counterparts, our white counterparts especially, they have had people that show, great grandma has been showing them for 4 generations how to run a business, how to manage their books, how to have a bookkeeper, how to put everything, what type of insurance to get. They bought the building for them, and now all they got to do is go sit down in the seat and run it. Yeah. And we're building it from the ground up. And so I admire what you're doing. I definitely believe you have more than what you need to run your own business. And a lot of it for us is stepping out in faith. And last thing I'll say is having a job always feels like security. And it is so scary to be an entrepreneur and just go out. But it's not until you put like 110% into being an entrepreneur that you really see the benefits. So thank you for bringing that up. So that was my pep talk to you.
Thank you.
That was my pep talk. But okay, so let's talk about work. Let's talk about health and wellness at work. First of all, what do you do to keep yourself healthy? Because you talking about seeing bones sticking out somebody's leg. You seeing sick people. I mean, I don't even like when people cough on me or breathe too close to me. I can smell their breath and stuff. So how are you dealing with that every day? Do you have to deal with it during COVID? First of all, God bless you for that. How are you dealing with germs and and not being stressed out. That's what I'm trying to ask you.
Well, definitely my own personal space at work in my own office. I wipe everything down. The keyboards, everything, the doorknobs, everything is wiped down so that I know that it's clean when I touch it. Of course, we're washing our hands constantly with soap and water as well as the Purell kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then we're all making sure that we wear masks still. We're still wearing masks.
Okay. Good. Good.
And of course, I want to pitch in, please get your flu vaccine and the COVID vaccine as well.
Okay. You think
Yes,
people should get both the flu
I do.
vaccine and
Maybe
the COVID
not
vaccine?
together, but definitely yes, both.
Okay.
Especially if you have conditions that warrant that.
Got it. When should you get it? Now? Right at this
Oh,
moment?
yeah. Usually, flu shot is starting in September.
Okay.
And I get it earlier than later because you want to get it before everybody's sick and you don't know they're sick. And then you claim that the vaccine got you sick.
Yeah. Okay. So what about in the workplace? So I want to talk about the workplace, and we were teasing a friend who'll probably be listening to this, and I don't care because I thought it was hilarious. But she calls, or they they were talking about FEMLA, and I said, "What the heck is FEMLA?" And she calls the people at her job that go out on family medical leave, the Family Medical Leave Act, which is FMLA. She called them FEMLA babies. And I'm like, I never even heard somebody call somebody a FEMLA baby, which could sound like, welfare baby, right? But the point is, I've seen this seriously. I've seen managers get upset when people go out on family medical leave, when basically family medical leave, this is this is one of the many things that human resources manages, is managing that leave of absence and that leave. But it was set up by the federal government to protect people who really get sick in the workplace and they need to protect their jobs. So look it up, people. It's called Family Medical Leave. Most likely it's in your break room on the poster, Family Medical Leave LA. And if you abuse that, then you're called a FEMLA baby. We just made that up. Yeah. So what do you think about that?
And I think it's important to utilize the Family Medical Leave Act when you need to take advantage of it. Also, if you're taking care of a family member that is sick and you need to go out because you're the sole caretaker for that person, it's very important to fill out the documentation. And if, for example, if you're going out on the leave for a mental condition, for example, and you're supposed to go to a certain amount of appointments, please keep those appointments. Please keep things done, because you have to bring that back to document that that's why you went out, so that you don't have any issues with HR.
Thank you. And guess what? It's not even issues with HR. It's issues with the manager. Yeah. HR is typically the middle person because the manager is saying, when can we fire that FEMLA baby? They're like, get rid of her. She a FEMLA. She abusing FEMLA.
But that's what some people are abusing it, and that's the issue. And when they come to me and they can't document that they still need the time off, they're encouraged to go back, because they won't get any more time off. And it's only for a certain amount of time anyway that it covers.
Yeah, so you also have in California the California Family Rights Act, so you can also be a CFRA baby. So CFRA is what's the backup for FEMLA. So FMLA and CFRA, that is real. Okay, so if you are listening, if you have learned nothing else, you have rights, okay? Yeah. The federal government has given you FMLA, and if you don't, FMLA is for employers with 50 people or more within a 75-mile radius of that job. And then you have CFRA, which is California Family Rights Act. And then you also have paid sick leave, which is a law in California where you get time. So between PFL, CFRA, FMLA, you should not be losing your job if you're sick. And I love what you said, Dr. Linda, that, this is important. Let's say one out of, I think 5 people have a mental illness in the workplace, and just in general in the country, 1 out of 5. Does that sound about right? Yeah. And so you have a mental illness, you're trying to get treatment, you need to take days off, but you're afraid you're going to lose your job. That adds to that stress, right? So why not use, you can do what they call intermittent FMLA. And you can use intermittent FMLA to take a day on a Thursday and have your doctor say, well, maybe you just need to take intermittent, which is, not in a continuous week or not continuous. Is separated. How's another word for intermittent? I can explain. It's in spurts. And so I know that you have rights. I talk about this all the time. People are like, what? I never heard of FMLA. And their parents. And so FMLA, like you were saying, Dr. Linda, is for parents, is for your spouse, and it's for anyone that you may have like a power of attorney that you are responsible for, a dependent. And I always tell people, especially if they're going through things with their elder parents and they're their sole provider, and they have, especially, typically got to have a power of attorney for that. But take some time. Take some time, especially during their last days.
Yeah. The other thing I find with the FMLA or just needing time off, a lot of people will come in saying they've been off of work for a certain amount of time. You can't do that. You have to go to your doctor's office and get a letter beforehand, because coming after the fact is difficult.
It is. It is. It is. I would say from an HR perspective that it's difficult, but it's also difficult on the other side to prove that the person didn't go to a doctor, because, and this is just no shade, no anything, but most employers believe that the doctor's notes are fake all the time. For real. They be like trying to erase it. They be trying to look under the mic like, this ain't real. And, oh, she got her a fake doctor note. Every time. That's all I hear.
I write the notes quite often.
Can they call you? No, I'm just kidding. Because they're like, this is fake. They always say that.
Letter, well, I always put down they can contact me if they need to. But when a patient needs a letter and I know them well, then that's easier for me to write the letter for them, because I know their situation. But if they've been out of work for a week, 2 weeks, and they want a letter to backdate, that gets kind of sticky, and I may not do that for them if I don't know them very well.
Especially if you haven't really been managing their care.
Exactly.
You can't just write a letter.
Yes, no.
So I heard both things. So one thing I'm going to say for the viewers or audience is make sure you tell your employers, you can call my nurse, you could call my doctor. Here's the number. That will go very far with a manager, because I'm telling you, 99% in the 25 years they do not believe those doctor letters are real. And they always call me like, D-Lay, does this doctor letter look real? And I had one job where that's all I did was I would verify, and I'll say with the company, it was UPS. I would verify doctor's letters all day because nobody believed them. Well, that was interesting. Well, I think it's so important people understand their rights. So, okay, let's go back to mental wellness. I want to make sure you and I were talking about the EAP. Every time I mention EAP, people don't know what I'm talking about. But I know you know what it is.
Yeah.
What's the EAP, Dr. Linda?
I don't remember what it stands for. But
Employee Assistance Program.
It's a mental health service that your employer provides. So you can call them anonymously and let them know that you need to be seen by a mental health specialist. And so you can go get your care that you need and be protected.
Maybe y'all will listen to Dr. Linda, because nobody listens to me. No, seriously. When I go into a client, one of the first things I tell them is, you are not a social worker. You should not be dealing with social work, and you have an employee coming to you and they're like, oh, I have PTSD or I have bipolar depression. Are you really qualified employer to manage their medical, like mental wellness? No. What does HR tell you to do? Direct them to the EAP, where they can set themselves up for free counseling, free sessions, and get help. Because once, like you said, I hope y'all heard Dr. Linda, because I've been saying this for 20 years. And I'm like, did you call EAP? Did you call the EAP? Did you use the EAP? And the other thing about the EAP, Dr. Linda, is it protects organizations. Because if an employee comes to you and says, I have PTSD, I can't stand by the copy machine. you can now say, I'm so sorry. Do you need an accommodation? Let's move you away from part of the accommodation might be moving you away from the copy machine. And then in the same breath, and here's the EAP, just in case you want to talk to someone about what you're experiencing. Because not to be rude, I'm not the person you need to talk to about. Because what am I going to do? I don't know how to manage how you respond to a copy machine. I need you to go help yourself. And so I teach managers that all the time, like give them the resources. Hey, and do you know we have XYZ benefits so you can go to the doctor? Do you know we have this? So I spend a lot of time helping employers just be able to express the benefits. So on the other side, for those listening, do you know if you have an EAP? I need you all to stop and look on the back of your little medical card, and it may have that on the back. It may say EAP, or you go to the website and you ask them, you say, what is the phone number for my EAP? I used the EAP when my father-in-law was getting ready to go into a nursing home, and they literally did research for me on nursing homes and gave and sent. Yeah, they do research for you. It's a lot, and there's just one big benefit that going back to being a entrepreneur. Take advantage of everything your employer is giving you right now. If they got a 401k, you take that 50% match, and that money that for the 401k could be what you build your business with. I know I bought my house with I bought my very first house with the money from 401k. And so we really need to be using kind of like Robin Hood. I be thinking like Robin Hood took from the rich and gave to the poor. Well, as employees, you need to be thinking like that company is Robin Hood. They got money and you need to take every bit of resources that they have. So I want to hear more from you. Okay. So what do you want the audience to know about you, Dr. Linda?
I think that you need to find the doctor that works well for you. So when I am introduced to new patients, I talk about my medical style and make sure that we both like this style. So that way we can have a better relationship, because I need to know everything about my patients. So I want to make sure that they are introduced to who I am and how I handle things. I'm very direct. I'm from New York City. So if you're someone that doesn't like things direct to you, I may not be the best provider for you.
Well, they need to like direct, because that's, you don't want to waste a lot of time. I like direct. I want my doctor to not beat around the bush. And so what's your next plan? What's your next step?
I think I'm going to look at seeing about expanding my practice.
Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I
want to go to 2 days a week.
Possibly. Possibly.
You could do 2 days. Come on. You do 2 days. Well, I definitely am rooting for you. Here's the thing I've been learning. You have to do it in your time. Yeah. I started first I started Mrs. HR. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing. That was like in 2012. I was so overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do with myself, but I had a vision. Then I went back into the workplace. So long story short, I went in and out, did it 3 times until finally, with coaching, with maturity, with, my state, I was able to stay out and pursue my business. But there's Barbara Corcoran. She's from Shark Tank. One thing she said that stood out to me is don't make your baby pay for its diapers. So the baby is your dream. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't make your dream pay for itself. So you do what you got to do to pay for that dream. You go to work, you sell cookies, whatever you have to do for that dream. You can't expect, I have a dream to be, a podcast director. Mm-hmm. Just me stepping out as a podcast director, I'm not going to be a millionaire overnight. I got to do other things to pay for that dream, unless I have rich family that's going to pay for it. But you see what I'm saying? So that helped me a lot. It helped me with, okay, it's going to take some time. I need to do some things. I got to save. I got to educate myself. I got to constantly be shaping my mind, shaping my bank account.
I mean, you talked about that. Like you asked me a question, what else did I need to do?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And of course, there's loans. I
Oh,
didn't want to
yeah.
take out a loan to do
That's
that. Although, um, depending on what type of business you have, for medical business, it would have paid itself off. But I didn't want to go into more debt.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I'm still learning. So I have taken out a loan. I had one loan, and I started off really small. I'm gonna tell all my business to America, but I started off small using the CDFI loans. I'm not gonna get into all that, but $50,000. But let me tell you why I did that, because I wanted to get comfortable with owing other people money. Because guess what? Just close your eyes and imagine Bill Gates. Imagine, oh goodness, I'm gonna name some people I like. How, Howard Schultz from Starbucks. What's his name? He was sitting in his garage. Jeff Bezos. And most of them white men that I just named, they didn't start their business with sweat equity. They started with loans and with lenders. And the bottom line, you start to learn as you're an entrepreneur that you need other people's money. Period. You either need a seed money, but that's what, as Black people, as Black women, that's something that's really hard. Like, we don't want to owe people money. It's like, and that was what was holding me back. But I promise you, early this year, when I took out that loan, that gave me freedom to have a stronger marketing budget. Like, oh, these like people say, oh, I see you on social media. Yeah, because now I got some money to be on social media. Before, I was just strapping, I didn't have no money. So that's how, some of the people we see who are really successful, they understand that. Again, their grandfather told them that. They already know how to get loans from the bank and use equity and we're still learning that as a people. And there's nothing wrong with taking out a loan.
The other thing I wanted to talk about too is looking at how I'm spending the money that I have, and like, am I going to buy a car? Am I going to buy a car, or am I going to put that into my business?
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I can't answer, but I tell you what, I told you Tina from Boy Blue, one of the things that she does for me, and there's other bookkeepers and people, of course, is making sure you have a strong financial budget. And you have your business budget and you have your personal budget. And I don't have it all right either, but I really have grown in that area, because when my business failed during the first year, it was because my money, I couldn't sleep at night. I'm like, I can't keep messing around with this business, and I don't know where my money is coming in. And so, but we could definitely, talk more, audience too. We have a lot of different, so I own like 4 different businesses. I own 3 different businesses, like all total of 4 businesses, LLCs. I have 4 LLCs, but one of them makes the majority of the money. But the point is, I just talked to my bookkeeper too. We talked about how, you have multiple streams of income, but that's for another day. That might be a whole panel workshop. You know what? Let's do that. We're going to do a workshop. But yeah, we need to just do more of that, getting together, talking about, how do you make that transition from entrepreneur to full entrepreneur? Yeah. One of my favorite one of my favorite coaches that I've been following is Rachel Rodgers. And she wrote this book called what is the book name? How to Be a Millionaire. Oh, what is it called? Hello 7? How to be a millionaire. I forgot the name of the book. I have to read it all the time. But anyhow, look up Rachel Rodgers. She owns a company called Hello 7. And I just listened to her podcast. And she talks about having that money mindset. And there's other podcasters who do that too. But I appreciate you bringing that up. That's what we need to be talking about. When we're in the rooms, we need to be talking about, well, how'd you do that? Well, how do you think about that? How do you, I had a conversation with a gentleman the other day, and I was asking him, how should I structure one of my businesses so that I can have investors? What does that look like? Because it's so out of the realms of how I normally think. But being in the rooms with people who tell you that, it'll help you be like, oh, I could do that. Well, Dr. Linda, I am so glad to have you on the show. I want to see, our producer, sometimes he have questions.
I don't have any questions today.
We must have done good because he don't have no question. We must have did really good. We must have done good.
No question.
No questions. So that means thumbs up for us. Well, I have to say thank you one more time. Thank you so much, Dr. Linda, for just being everything you do for the community, number one, period. And being here, making time to be on the Ask Mrs. HR podcast. So I have to do my shameless plug. Power up your potential with Mrs. HR. Hopefully you can see that. You can get this shirt and other things by going to the hrstore.biz. And then my book, The Diversity Dilemma, is on Amazon, top 200 right now. I think I'm like at I'm at like 226 in my category. So it's on its way to Audible soon. Hopefully by the time you're listening to this, it will be available on Audible. And I have TheLakeThatch.com. And Mrs. HR in the Box is available. Just go to Mrs. HR in the Box. You can actually get credit, like continuing education credit, by taking or buying Mrs. HR in the Box, because there's 7 modules that teach you how to do HRs, a DIY HR toolkit. And in that toolkit, you also have forms and documents and even posters that tell you like how to do HR right. So I think I covered it all. Thank you so much for joining us at the Ask Mrs. HR podcast. Reach out to me if you want to be on the podcast. And let's just be nice to our medical professionals. Thank you.
Yes.
And see you next time on the Ask Mrs. HR podcast. Thank you.